Good morning, guys. North Korea enters the war in Ukraine. Everybody's talking about it. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. So what does this mean on a greater scale? What does this mean for the global conflict? What does this mean for World War III? Well, guys, I'm going to tell you because nobody seems to be understanding what this really means. Now, I can tell you pretty quickly what this means. And if you just take the word North Korea and synonymize that, if that's a word, I think it should be. And I'm a fully qualified English gentleman, so I can make up words. It's my birthright. So if we synonymize that with China, because remember, North Korea does nothing without China say so. And when I read the rest of this article, if you just change the words North Korea to China, then you get a totally different aspect of this conflict. You get a totally different dynamic. And, you've got to think to yourself, you've got to take this back to the base truths. Do North Korea have the ability to do absolutely anything without China giving them the thumbs up? No, of course not. North Korea is run by China, and that's just the way it is, guys. All right, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm telling you that's the way it is. So today we're going to talk about this. There's apparently 10,000 troops. 10,000 North Korean troops training for an involvement in Ukraine. I've been saying there's going to be this big push from my guys in Ukraine. They've been telling me, look, the Russians they're gathering logistics, they're gathering manpower, they're gathering, capacity for a multi-pronged attack in Ukraine. And guys, honestly, the Ukrainians don't really have anything left unless they can pull something out of the bag, or the Russians are particularly bad, because we all know the Russians are not that good at war, but they have lots of people and lots of production capacity. But unless the Russians make a really big mistake, I can't see how the Ukrainians can push these guys back, especially if this push comes on a multi-pronged attack. The Ukrainians just don't have the manpower to do this. So this is going to potentially push the rest of NATO into Ukraine. Remember, they've been talking about this for months and months and months. They've even got an operational name for it. It's called the EU sorry, guys, this is just... it's called the EU Military Assistance Mission Ukraine. They're talking, it's all over the media, guys. There's lots of reports on it. You just have to search for it. There are people saying, look, it's going to be more cost effective for us to conduct this training inside Ukraine. And once that happens with training, those trainers need security. Once the Western allies, the Western nations have secured those locations, there's no need anymore for the Ukrainians to secure those locations. So those troops that were there as security, they can be pushed forwards. Guys, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors and pageantry leading us towards a conflict. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. If anything, I understand that this is part of human. It's part of humanity. We have eyes in the front of our head. We're apex predators. We're explorers, engineers, pioneers. We push the boundaries of everything. It's why we have the internet. It's why we have rockets that can go to space. It's why we have the internal combustion engine. It's why we industrialize. It's why we have medical facilities, because we're always trying to make our situation better. We're always trying to do better from ourselves. And a byproduct of that is every now and then we have a big major war, and a lot of us don't come back from that. But anyway, guys, if you think I'm wrong and you think the human condition is not that, where are our eyes? Our eyes are in the front of our head. Tell me another apex predator another predator that does not have eyes in the front of our heads. I mean, I know right now there's quite a lot of sissy boys that, they're clearly not apex predators. They should have, eyes on the side of their heads. And unfortunately, a lot of these are in charge at the moment. Now, I'm not saying there's any correlation, but have you seen Keir Starmer punch a punch bag? I have, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, are you really an apex predator? Really? Come on, mate. I mean, honestly, I don't know any men who, like in my personal circles, I don't know any men who can't fight. Now, whether that's, black belts in jiu-jitsu, special forces guys, people who fight with, all sorts of stuff. Every man who I know knows how to fight. And when I see Keir Starmer punch a punch bag, I'm thinking, wow, he's like the leader of our country. Guys, come on. Somebody at least teach him how to do a 1-2 left up. Please, you know, it will save him a lot of embarrassment when him and Lord Ali are, you know, releasing the sausages or whatever they do. But anyway, guys, the jux of this video is North Korean troops entering Ukraine and this big push. What does it all mean for the global harmony? What does it all mean on a geopolitical front? Let's just get straight into it because I'm just conscious I've waffled for like 5 minutes about, I don't know, Keir Starmer and people being able to fight. So let's go straight to the share screen and we'll talk about this. I think it was released yesterday. What are we on? 10,000, our 10,000 North Korean troops really heading to Ukraine. When was this out? This was... So no, today actually, this came out today. So Western officials understand to be following the situation closely, following claims by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Remember, guys, now the truth doesn't matter anymore. The truth's kind of an arbitrary. It's kind of an arbitrary metric. What matters is the perception of the truth in the context that, you know, if everybody believes 10,000 North Koreans are in Ukraine heading towards the front line, guess what? We will react like there's 10,000 North Korean troops heading towards the front line in Ukraine. It doesn't really matter if they are or they aren't. The perception matters. So, you know, I'm just going with this article. But look what people are starting to talk now, guys. Sorry, I just lost my train. He warned that the Asian countries' involvement would be the first step to a world war. Guys, more and more people are coming out now and looking at the situation and saying, well, hang on a minute. Literally, everybody is fighting. Everybody's got troops. Everybody's firing missiles at each other. Yeah, you know, if it looks like a world war and it smells like a world war and it sounds like a world war, guess what? Probably a world war. But anyway, let's go with it. So Deborah Haynes, I don't want to look into her, but I'm looking at her. She looks like a young female, and I'm not sure what experience she has as a defense analyst, but whatever. So that is so 10,000 North Korean troops heading to Ukraine. Apparently they're training in Russia, and these guys are heading towards Ukraine. Well, that's what President Volodymyr Zelensky is saying in a trip to NATO headquarters, calling the North Korean involvement first step towards a world war. Now, he also revealed that tactical personnel, as well as military officers from the totalitarian state, remember, guys, all right, North Korea is now synonymous with China. So when I'm talking about this, if I say North Korea, just think in your heads, China. As well as... So basically what he's saying here is tactical personnel as well as officers. So the military officers, I think what he's referring to there is advisors. Remember, North Korean special military advisors is synonymous with Chinese special military advisors. These would be predominantly Chinese special forces guys, just behind, observing, watching, seeing what's happening, you know, and reporting back to, you know, their leaders in North Korea. So now they're saying that there's tactical personnel involved. So these would be, these would be fighting troops, people who are going out on the front line, people who are potentially getting rounds down. From our intelligence, we've got information that North Korea sent tactical personnel and officers to Ukraine on temporary occupied territories, and they are preparing on their land 10,000 soldiers, but that they didn't move them already to Ukraine or to Russia, Mr. Zelensky said at a news conference with Mark Rutte, the new Secretary General of NATO. So what does this mean? Well, basically, how has Zelensky... Remember, guys, Zelensky, the Ukrainians, they don't have any long-range intelligence gathering capacity. So any information that they're getting, this sort of information has to come from satellites. Guys, I think I said that these were training in Russia. I may have said that. What they're saying here is that these guys are trained... The 10,000 troops, they're training in North Korea, and it looks like these guys are going to be the ones pushed forwards. There are North Korean troops from this article already in Russia, in Ukraine from this article. And these guys will be the not the early warning. These will be like the advance party. These will be the reconnaissance teams who would be marking front lines. You know, in the United Kingdom, this would either be, you know, special forces, Pathfinder platoon. You know, they've been looking at the ground and looking where people are going to deploy. identifying locations, identifying what kit and equipment is required, what kit and equipment is necessary for this deployment. So they're saying that, right, so remember, okay, the Ukrainians don't have any satellite capacity, you know, so any information that they're getting about things that are happening in North Korea, it has to come from NATO. It has to come from American NATO satellites that are flying over that region. So that's why I think they're getting it. Now, the fact that he's saying this when he is having a conference with the new Secretary General of NATO, that kind of means that this thing has a lot of credibility, because if we start saying things, you know, if NATO starts saying things, if the Ukrainians start saying things that are just wrong, then, you know, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. In the future, when you say things, it doesn't have any weight, it doesn't have any credibility. The intelligence is yet to be confirmed by Western officials. Guys, I would say this intelligence actually came from Western officials. How else are the Ukrainians going to get this information that there's 10,000 troops training in North Korea? I don't know any other way that they can get this other than by satellites. It's not, you know, it's not like Zelensky can send a couple of guys in a taxi to go and have a skirt around North Korea. It's not like, you know, you can just send people into North Korea. It's ridiculously difficult to get into North Korea. And when you do get into North Korea, guys, go do your own research about North Korea and what it's like, what the regime is like. That, guys, it's wild. So, you know, the only way that you can realistically gather this information is with satellites, and that's with military satellites. Because, again, you know, I don't want to go... It just, when these satellites, military satellites that are not hardened, fly over North Korea and fly over Russia, these things are normally attacked by ground-based lasers. You won't find this in any media outlets, but this is happening. This is old technology. This is like 1980s technology. You know, when there's, you know, because, you know, the Russians, the North Koreans, the Chinese, the Iranians, they know the trajectory, they know the flight paths of a lot of these satellites, and they know where a lot of these big military satellites are, and they fire lasers up at them just to harass them, just to disrupt their sensors. Yeah, the article goes on. I'll share the article in the description. But like I keep saying on this channel, guys, okay, right now at the moment in Ukraine, in Russia, on the Russian side, they're gearing up for a multi-pronged attack. They're also pushing the Ukrainians out of the Kursk region. This comes at the same time as Zelensky is trying to get nuclear weapons. You know, the conflict in Ukraine, it's not going anywhere. You can tell when a conflict's starting to look like it's coming to an end, when people are talking about peace talks, when, you know, rather than people come up and talk about getting nuclear weapons, they start talking about, oh yeah, we can have peace talks, then we can have peace talks here. Guys, there's no way we can have peace talks at the moment. There's too much fighting going on at the ground. The world is in too much, the world is in absolute turmoil. You know, and these North Koreans that are going to enter the war, going to enter the conflict, what effect are they going to have? Well, varied. It depends on their level of competency, and it depends on their level of training, which it's pretty much untested at the moment. Does that mean they're bad? No, absolutely not. It could mean they're really good. If they're well trained, well equipped, well motivated, they could have a huge effect. I said, guys, from like day one, I said if the United Kingdom released 16 when the Russians first in the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, I said, look, if the United Kingdom had deployed 16 air assaults to Ukraine, there would be no Russia right now. Russia would be over. Russia would be reduced to, what would it be reduced to? It would have been reduced to St. Petersburg, Moscow, and some of the northern regions, and the rest of Russia would have balkanized. But that didn't happen because, you know, the leadership in the United Kingdom, they were scared, they were worried, you know, they were scared of deploying our troops. And instead, what we've got now, we're having a build-up on both sides, a build-up whereby, you know, each side has more lethal capacity, each side has more capacity, each side has more training and understanding and knowledge of the group, knowledge of the ground, you know, and this is what makes it more deadly. Imagine if, just think about this, like on a, you know, on a smaller scale, if two guys are fighting in a car park or whatever, you know, if they just have a fight straight away, one guy will win and that'll be it. That'll be over. But if those two guys are talking about it for weeks, for months, getting their friends involved, somebody goes and smashes somebody else's car up, then somebody goes and smashes somebody else's car up, then somebody does something else, and you see the escalation makes things worse and worse and worse. You know, if you just get it over and done with quick, it's over. But that's the problem. You know, the government were scared, the United Kingdom, the British government were scared to deploy their troops early on. So now we're going to deploy the troops late, which means the Russians have the capacity to have a build-up, and it just makes things worse, guys. It really does. And again, if Britain had deployed troops early, then nobody would have really made any money, because the war would have been over. There would have been no big military contracts, and it would have been pretty much over right now. And we could have all concentrated on space exploration, going to Mars, a colony on the moon, you know, taking the resources that are in asteroids. But anyway, guys, that's another video. I've waffled on for far too long, guys. I'm going to max a grid, and I'll get you guys another video later.